How's it going?
I'm good, Mark. I'm good, Mark. Welcome to the Playroom, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is I'm looking forward to our little chat.
You're
It's
welcome.
good to meet you.
Good to meet you, too. Where are you from? Where are you at right now?
Tampa.
Tampa. Oh, yeah. Super
So we
Bowl.
don't have any of the snow. Like it was like yesterday. It was like freezing at like 59 or something.
What?
Like this is cold as it gets.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah, not from the stadium, but yeah, I watched it from home. It was this is the second time I've had the Super Bowl in like my town. I was living up in New Jersey last time when they had it over at the new Giant Stadium.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. I'm about to also record this in the video so we can also have a video chat too.
Sure.
Awesome.
You're the boss.
Welcome, Mark, and I really, really appreciate you for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. I want people to really know like who you are, what you do, because I think the energy started on a very, very huge wave. So I want to keep it going that way.
So who I am? I'm a previously professional musician who turned marketing guy who turned author. So I've kind of reinvented myself every decade or so. I reinvent myself into some new thing that I'm chasing, and the latest is as an author.
Awesome. I could also see, shout out to Podmatch, that you were, based on your profile, you spent about more than 10 years playing the bass in the Broadway show Rent.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
So I graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts in, it was 93, 94. And I had this idea that I wanted to play on Broadway. I hadn't been to a show at that point, but like it was a steady gig. And I think as a musician, like with any idea, any thought of having a steady income and steady job was pretty cool, and also Broadway was really prestigious at the time, and I mean it still is now. So I kind of headed down that path and started. This is before the internet was really a big deal. So so I was going into the city, walking around the city every day, stealing playbills and phone books, and just calling people and trying to get into that scene as best I could. Eventually got a job writing for Bass Player magazine, which kind of positioned me as an authority in the space.
Nice.
In an interesting way, and suddenly everybody wanted to be my friend and get in, because I was writing for the magazine, and give me a chance to kind of show everybody what I was capable of doing. And within, I guess, probably about 2 years, I was subbing for the Broadway show Rent on Broadway, on Broadway, and ultimately got the gig touring the country with the first and second national tours.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Definitely, that definitely shows a lot of experience, time, and most definitely practice. Do you still play?
Yeah, I still my bass there.
Oh, there it is.
So yeah, no, I still play. I don't play for the show, although I do sub for the what was the current tour before COVID hit. So I went out a couple weeks. Was it last year or no? It was the year before last year. I went out for a couple weeks, to fill in whenever somebody needs a break. But yeah, I mean, it was all about persistence and tenacity and just having a really strong message and drive, because at the time I was not the best bass player in New York City. There were thousands of people that were vying for these types of jobs. And it's not that I was better than everyone. It's that I was very competent. I was very good at my instrument. But really, what it was about was being able to not give up and just keep knocking on doors and finding interesting ways to get in. nobody had really thought of like, well, if nobody's going to pick up my call, what if I wrote for a major magazine? Then I bet they'll answer the phone.
Right.
And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Wow. It's crazy that you just mentioned bass because I play the drums too. And I've been playing for over 20 years, self-taught.
Oh, wow.
And you just kind of like sparked that question because when you hear drum and bass, they always go together. So in your experience, did you ever have problems with drummers that won't get you right? Because there's a track record of musicians doing crazy stuff on stage, like eyeballs and everything.
Well, there's always, there's no shortage of drummer jokes out there. But then again, there's no shortage of bass player jokes either, so I should probably be kind. Probably one of the funnier things that would happen is when I was on tour with the show, and this is like a major Broadway production, like it was a big deal. And there were certain times where the lights would go out, where it'd be pitch black, and it would be silence, and it was like, either changing sets or like a very, a specific time in the show. Yeah. And the drummer used to throw his drumstick and try to hit the strings on my bass to see if he could get it to, like in the middle of this like really quiet moment, prang, and, in order to partly get me in trouble, but also it just became like when you're traveling and you're playing the same show night after night, you get bored, you start to, it starts to get more and more ridiculous as time goes.
Wow, that's true. Because even when I play the drums and with bass, when I see the bass line, he's looking at me and I can hear doom, doom, doom. Like, you're supposed to be on that kick. So
yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's great. Now that, of course, with music, that also tells a lot about, the way you're able to read, the way you're able to multitask, definitely. And you've also been able to get into the gift of marketing, which is your other strength. And now with marketing, how have you been able to use that to leverage and change the world as it is today?
So, at some point when I was playing the show, I decided that I wanted to start a marketing company because I found that I was just really good at getting in front of people. I was like, and meanwhile, I would see all these people that I went to school with that were, incredible guitarists and drummers and sax players, and they were all waiting tables and, working regular jobs and not doing what they were meant to do, what they've been chasing, their whole life. And so, like, really, really talented people. So it occurred to me, like, this is not like a performance or issue. This is not whether or not they're good enough for the gig. This is 100% not knowing how to get in front of the right people.
Right.
And so I started I wanted to create a marketing company because I was like, if I can do this for myself, I bet I can either teach or do this for other people. And so that's what I did. Like, and so I started taking on a lot of musician clients, and then which turned into eventually grew to taking on some big companies like Nike and American Express and Berkshire Hathaway, and so I had this like really small, like uneducated, natural talent of marketing ability mixed with, okay, now I'm stuck and I'm working with a client like Nike or American Express, and because it was early on, and in the website marketing, like digital marketing world, where they didn't know what to do. Like they're like, we know we need to do something about all this stuff. Right. We're just not really sure what it is. So let's bring on other people that say that they do this, and that's kind of how it's good timing and very again, the tenacity. And then after about 10 or 15 years, I decided to exit that company because what I originally intended, in terms of helping people and making a difference and being able to say, hey, here's this thing I could do to help people live that purpose. Once it started getting into all the big companies, like, it wasn't as fun anymore. Like, it wasn't as meaningful. Did Nike sell more sneakers because of me? Maybe a half a dozen, I don't know. But like, it didn't really make it. Like, it's not like at the earnings call they're thanking me for making a big difference in their company, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to work with people that I could really make a difference for. So I started a couple of years ago. I exited that company and started a company called Loudmouse, and we're a personal branding agency. and we help people that have that big message, that big idea, get in front of the people they need to get in front of, and build their brand, and build that message in order to make that difference.
That's great. Loudmouth. First of all, the word itself sparks curiosity, so to speak.
Sure.
So what brought Loudmouth to what it is today in terms of how you phrase the word, use two completely different words, put them together, and you can see loud and loud. Let me just kind of give an example. For loud, I'm thinking as a personal brand, the word loud in your sentence, in your statement, is more so like a reinforcing idea that shows how important it is for you to be heard. So I'll leave the rest to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a pretty good job, actually. So the idea behind Loudmouse and what we stand for, and what my belief is, and it is two very extreme words. You have loud, which is really big and boisterous and loud, and then you have mouse, which is usually something very small and somewhat insignificant. And the idea behind it was, how do is that it's my belief that anybody, no matter the size, has a right to be heard. And so when my view of marketing is so much about messaging and so much about being heard, than anything else. Like it's not a website, it's not social media, it's not paid ads. It's this idea of how do you get in front of people and be heard? How and I don't you don't have to be. You don't have to be a big company like Nike or a famous person like Elon Musk to be on to get on a stage and get in front of people and get some people to pay attention to you. And so that was really kind of the concept behind it, is that because the fact is if a mouse seems very small and quiet and insignificant until you have a family of them in your attic. Then it's not so funny anymore. Right. It's so small and insignificant. So this idea that you can, not that you can be a pain and ruin somebody's attic, but that you can be heard, you can be loud, you can be attention grabbing. Even if you just have this idea and you don't have the audience like an Elon Musk or an Oprah Winfrey would have.
Okay. And I would even talk about branding and personal messaging in the area of apps and social media. For example, I'll bring two up. The first one would be LinkedIn, and which will pretty much B2B, and then the second one would be Clubhouse. Now, if you have a client that is interested in either of those or both, how do you advise someone to still retain that personal branding statement without being overemphasized or without being overambiguous with the idea that, okay, these are organic platforms I can really stretch myself out in?
I mean, it really kind of comes down to your goals. If what's the purpose of being on those platforms, and are the people that you want to reach on those platforms? Because if you're trying to reach 90-year-old retirees or like nursing home patients, and you're going on Clubhouse, it's probably not going to, or even LinkedIn for that matter, it's probably not going to work very well because your audience isn't there. They're not there to receive your message. So either you're not going to have a full room of people that are actually paying attention, or people that are connecting with you on LinkedIn, or you're going to have to change your message, and now you're inauthentic to who you are and what your purpose is.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're showing up on Clubhouse doing how to be the next billionaire kind of room, and you're talking to people that really aren't the people that you ultimately want to sell to. And so you have to change yourself in order to accommodate the platform, and now you're completely, inauthentic and not being, true to who you are, which I think is the big problem, because personal branding is so much about, stripping down to your boxer shorts and showing people who you really are, and not trying to say trying to craft a message based on what other people want to hear. You're stepping up and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what's important to me. This is what I believe. These are my values, and attracting the right people versus just saying, all right, who's got money? Let me see what I have to say in order to sell something to them.
Right. That's true. Speaking of personal branding in that context, How do you tell someone who has no idea where to start and has a very huge vision, has a very huge ambition, but they don't even know because all the social media platforms are getting oversaturated as we go on. The cost per click is going high. There's so much going on. So how do you tell someone that's just starting that says, okay, I'll start today for the next 365 days and see what happens? How do they strategize themselves just from a fundamental basis?
Well, you can't just start and say like, all right, I'm going to give this a year and let's see what happens because um, there's no meat there on the bone. Like you don't know, like what are we even running towards? Where should we even go? Like there's so many unknowns that you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping something sticks. On the other hand, what we always do whenever I'm working with somebody, the first thing that we talk about is what's the goal? Like what do you want this thing to look like a year from now, or 6 months from now, or 5 years from now? How do you define success? So when you think in terms of I have this big idea and now I'm just going to start putting it out there and hope something happens, like what do you want it to look like? Is it a company? Are you selling a product? Or is it do you have are you building an audience? Like what is that goal? And once you get clear on that goal, it's just a matter of just backing it up. So if you have a 1 year goal, what does it need to look like in 9 months or 6 months or 3 months or in 30 days? And so this way you know that you're on track, but also so you're actually marching towards something as opposed to just trying 1,000 different things, because there are so many platforms that can steal your attention away. And everybody's talking about Clubhouse, and so you better be on Clubhouse too. And so now all of a sudden you veer off the path, and now you're wasting time on Clubhouse when your audience isn't there. Or maybe you spend so much time on LinkedIn, and maybe your audience is on Clubhouse, and you should spend your time there and completely shift your strategy. Without knowing what your target is, you're just kind of shooting at anything and hoping something sticks, and that never ends well. At the end of the 365 days, you take a step back and you look and you go, oh yeah, that's not where I was heading towards.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's also a best practice to know exactly who is looking for you by the content you actually bring out, because if you're talking about a certain topic, there's already an age demographic, there's already a social graphic palette. There's already someone that is in that business today that you would just have to compete with, but you have to know where they are. So it would now lead that person to know, where can I be able to leverage my content on? And sometimes people are very, very skeptical about paid ads because some people see them working. Some people just don't know how to start. They don't know if it's 18 to 44. They don't know what to do with those metrics. So in terms of balancing organic and paid content, especially for content marketing and branding, how do you make sure that you're not spending too much and also not spending too much of time in that same space?
I think it comes down to that clarity in the beginning. Like, are you willing to do the homework, in the beginning to avoid having it cost you later? And what I mean by that is, let's say you have your goal, all figured out. I want to build an audience of 20,000 people. I want to sell this program or this product or this thing or this service. And so you have it pretty much laid out. Here's my 1 year goal. Okay, so now the next step, like you said, is who are the people that are going to buy this thing, and who's my audience? And once I figure out who my audience is, what problems do I solve with this thing? And and how do I solve the problem differently than everybody else? Because if it's just another product that everybody else is trying to sell, and there's nothing different about it, then you're going to either compete on price or you're just going to get lost in the mix. But if it's something that makes people go like, wow, like that's a totally different way of looking. I never thought of it that way. Now you've really kind of isolated yourself away from your competition. And so there's just a whole bunch of homework that has to happen before that. When you figure all that stuff out, that when it comes down to pay, that now it's time to start paying for ads. Who you're targeting, so you're not just guessing and just spewing ads out into the ether and hoping that somebody buys something. and you know what problem that they have, so you know how to gear the content within your ad, and you know what your solution is and how to solve that different from everybody else. So you know the kind of content, the kind of video, or whatever you need to do within your landing page to really kind of convince people that this is a solution that they've never seen before. And so if you do all that homework, then your ad campaign is going to be much more successful. So, you know, when the question is like how little or how much should you spend, if every time I put $1 in, I'm getting $5 out, the amount is unlimited. Like I would do, you know, how much do you have? You know, how much, you know, like if it's consistent and you've done the work and it's working, then yeah, just keep. I would keep, I would write a blank check to Facebook if that's the case. But if you don't do any of that homework and you're just guessing, and I put in $1 and I get 25 cents back, then yeah, there's a budget involved here. There's a ceiling. There's only so far you can go, and you're going to be paying a lot of money to test whether what you're doing works or not. And you better hope that you know the next set of ads you're a better guesser, because it's costing you a lot of money every time. So really, if you're willing to do the work up front, then you have a lot more room to play. And you know, because you know, there's you know, if the better it converts, and the higher that you get to go.
Yeah, I'll even get a little more technical with this question, because now that we've been talking about, you know, your return on your ad spend and return on your investments, how do you put it in a space whereby you have an audience, it's a cold audience, you don't know who they are, now you're warming up the audience with either email sequences or whatever you want to call it. Now, when it comes to building that cold to warm traffic or that cold to warm audience conversion lead, usually on Facebook, of course, we have the, you know, the brand awareness, the consideration, and the conversion. So when people are thinking about all these terms and conditions, how do they really make sure that they're not using, for example, video views instead of lead generation for something that they know that would cost them later in the future? So in terms of just balancing that out, how do they make sure that even if their audience, they know their audience, maybe they have the right keywords, they've done their research, but you also know the cost per click is on different levels and scales. How does that person still make sure that as you're testing, which is something that you can't do without, if you don't test your run your ads, you'll never know who is actually needing this. You may think that this group needs it, but actually it's group B that needs it. So how do you make sure that that problem solving technique is not oversaturated with ideas?
Just to clarify, I want to clarify your question a little bit.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go deep. So you mean in terms of, you know, we're pretty clear about who our audience is, but again, you don't really know until you test it out. And so you get to that point of testing. How far do you go with that ad or with whatever it is that you're doing? You know, like at what point do you say, well, maybe this is the wrong group, or maybe this isn't working, or, you know, is that the question?
Yeah, like in terms of, like you said, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you don't want to do too much, you don't want to do too little. So you can run a test ad for a week, you can spend a huge amount in a week, and you can spread it out through a month. So in terms of making sure that people don't spend too much or spend too little, how can they make sure that they're trying their best to test with, you know, more results and less, what's the word I'm looking for? Less stress, because people can get stressed when they don't see returns on their ads. Yeah.
It's really tough to say, because there's so many factors involved. Like if you're selling a $5 product or a $20 t-shirt, that's a lot different than if you're selling like a $5,000 or $10,000, you know, service. And so for a $5,000 or $10,000 service, you may have to spend, you know, a couple $100 just to get one lead. You know, versus a shirt. If you're spending a couple $100 to sell one shirt, you're in trouble. You know, like that's you've made a mistake somewhere along the line. So it really kind of depends on the market that you're in and what you're trying to sell. And you know, you have to be reasonable. Like in terms of, like, you can't spend, you know, $5 a day for 3 days and then go, oh, it doesn't work. You know, you have to be willing to invest, you know, like, and again, if you do that homework up front, then you have to, like, you should be confident enough to say, all right, I'm willing to throw $500 at this week, and let's see like what the data tells us. And if let's say you sell nothing, you just spent $500, then how you have to look at it is, okay, so I just bought a bunch of data for $500. Because if you just say I just wasted $500, you're going to lose your mind. You know, it's going to it's going to make you afraid to take the next step, because it very well could end that way. You may spend 500, 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, and walk away with nothing but some data. But data is really important because data will point out where the holes are. Data will tell you what needs to change and what worked and what didn't work. And so, at least if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, I spent $500 or $1,000, and now I have information. What can I get from this information that will help me, that's worth $500 or more? What can I get from this information to make sure I save $500 the next time I try to do this, so it works better. So that I think is kind of, it's almost like a mindset, because if you walk into it thinking that you wasted money, or that or the ads are just a waste, or I didn't sell anything so it was a failure or whatever, then I think that you're not long for this world in terms of paid ads, because I've had plenty of campaigns where I've spent, I've put me in the fetal position, after spending oh my God, we spent a couple grand and got nothing. But we took that data, we did something with it, and then as it ends up, the third or fourth or fifth campaign was the one that really worked. If it was just about wasting money, then I probably would have quit after the second campaign.
Exactly. And when you're able to know what works, then you can use that machine and replicate it and still create a snowball effect after that. And
right.
And now in terms of strategy and branding, I'm going to get a little strategic with the question in terms of how somebody can pose their message. Because earlier you talked about how someone should really know their audience to know exactly what kind of verbiage to actually communicate with, so that they're not losing their audience retention because of what they're talking about. So when you think about webinars, because people do webinars like classrooms these days. Now, how do you take a personal brand with webinar, email sequencing, and ads and work them together so that you're not losing out? Because I believe the chunk of the information is behind the door, which is where the course is, the program, if it's lifestyle, inspirational. But within those 30 minutes or 45 minutes someone is spending, how do you make sure that that person is glued enough to not lose out? Because this is something they opted in the first place. So they don't want to feel like they opted in and lost time.
So it's a fine dance that you have to do between, showing that I know what I'm talking about, have experience, I've done this, but without doing the whole, here's a picture of me next to a Ferrari and, like all that nonsense.
Right.
So being able to flex a little bit of muscle, giving them something valuable that they can actually do something with. I'm a big fan of positioning your webinar in a way where, like I can't give you all the secrets in 30 to 45 minutes, even if I wanted to. But it's also a terrible idea because, if I give you too much, then you're going to say, well, before I buy that program, I'm going to spend the next 6 months implementing what you've already taught me.
Right.
So not giving too much, but also not wasting people's time and giving them something valuable. And then the third, kind of piece of that is just being very authentic and likable. If I'm on your webinar and you have a very sleazy webinar where you've done nothing but brag about how great you are, gave me something of very little value, and on top of that, you're really arrogant or really obnoxious, or you're very clearly very guarded, or you read all the internet marketing books, and so so you're just regurgitating what everybody else says. You're not somebody that I want to buy a program from because I don't want to look at you anymore. I don't feel connected to you. But if you're really likable and it was really enjoyable and it was like it's almost like you're entertaining. You're not only teaching, you're not only telling stories, but you're also entertaining a little bit. And you're somebody that I really want to get to know, and I really want to do stuff with, or learn from, or be around, I'm more likely to buy that program because I want to be around you. Like if you look at all the, like a lot of the internet marketing, like the internet marketing folks that have lasted through the years, not the one and done program types, but like, the Frank Kerns of the world that have been around for, 15, 20 years or whatever. Like, say what you want about Frank. He's a really smart guy, and he's very likable. Like you just want to, it's not torture listening to him talk. And so you have to be that. You have to have a personality. You have to be somebody that people are going to want to spend time with. Otherwise, it's it's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah, that's a really good point you mentioned, because even in webinars, if I'm able to get into a webinar, I don't know you, but within the first 5 to 10 minutes, I have a backstory of how you even got to this type of, experience or career. Now I feel like I'm personable, because people wouldn't buy from people they don't like. Period.
Right.
Even if you had the best jet, if I don't like your attitude, I'm not going to spend that wasting time and energy, try to reiterate what I'm trying to say to you the first time, second time, third time. So even in terms of pricing, because people always know at the end of the webinar, there's always going to be a sale. The people already know what is going to happen. But in terms of pricing as well, when people hear, okay, this course is $99 compared to someone else that says, okay, this course is $97. Now, do those two have equal value, or is it the value of the person that's offering? Because sometimes people say, it's too expensive, I don't know if I need it. And people do need this. It's not like the only barrier is the finance. And that's usually where the conversion is. So sometimes people have struggles making that conversion rate. So how do you, ease that curve so that it's not too crazy for the person?
Within reason,
Yeah.
If somebody's not willing to buy a program, like let's say it's $9.97 or whatever, and they're like, this, I'm going to pass on that. Within reason, it's most likely because they just don't think it's valuable enough, or they don't believe you that you're going to do what you said you're going to do. Or you're tapped into the wrong audience. They genuinely don't need it. It's like, we're not talking about, buying a, $2 million house where it's just out of reach for people. Like, for $9.97, if this is going to, if this is going to do the thing that you said it's going to do, and, then it's not a lot to spend if it's really that valuable. Now, there's one other, way that people might, walk away from something like that. And that's if they don't believe in themselves. So, when they get done looking at this whole thing and they go, you know what, there's no way I'm going to finish it. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to buy this course and I'm going to put it on the bookshelf with all the other ones that I watch the introduction module to and then forget all about. And it's just going to be a complete waste of time. And so I'm just not going to buy it. So you might have that as well, but more often than not, it's you're either just not making it valuable enough, or you're not clear on what the value is, or there's something missing in terms of, I don't know if this is the right program, and so it's very rarely about price at that range, at that $0 to $1,000 range. It's very rarely about the price, more so than it is about, you just didn't make it feel like it's worth it.
Right. And speaking of even worth it, now that you mentioned it, what if somebody says, okay, I know you may not think this is worth it, but here's a 30-day free trial to just get in and then see what it is. And then maybe you can pay a membership fee every month until maybe 12-month cycle, for example. Now, does that person feel more not entitled, more willing to, try and see what actually happens? Or it'll be like, oh, it's free, there must be something, there must be a catch. People usually think about those things. So how do you leverage that too?
Well, first of all, I would never say that. I know you probably think it's not worth it, because you certainly don't want to plant that seed. First of all, if they're not thinking that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I guess I'm, like, why would you think that it sounds like you think it's not worth it?
Right.
So I definitely wouldn't say, I know you think it's not worth it, or, whatever. I think a lot of it, like, whether it's free for 30 days and then you pay every month, or whether it's, one price, or whether it's, 3 payments, like whatever you're charging for your program or your service or membership or whatever it is, like, I think it's less about trying to appease other people. I think it's not like there's nothing wrong with free for 30 days, as much as it's, if you're using that as an excuse, or just like, well, what if I give it to you for free for 30 days? As opposed to you coming out and just very, very clear, very, with having nothing but clarity and intention, saying, I believe in this so much that I'm going to give it to you for 30 days because I know once you get a taste of what's behind these doors, you're going to be all in. Like there's just no question in my mind. To come from that place of confidence and intention, versus, well, I know you don't think it's worth it, so let me give it to you for 30 days so you can see for yourself. Like that's two very, very different animals.
Right.
And so it's whatever your pricing is, whether it's a monthly fee or whether it's 3 payments, whether it's an annual payment, whether it's free for 30 days or there's a 6-month guarantee, whatever that is, if you come at it head on and hand it to people from that place of confidence, it doesn't matter what the price is, versus like making an excuse or trying to appease other people. Like, well, I know you said no, so what if I gave it to you for 30 days? Now it feels like it's not valuable at all.
Right.
Because it's just like, it's like, oh, so I didn't want, like, you asked me to pay $100 for it, and I said no, and then instantly you said 50. So now I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second.
Right.
That makes it feel like, so you were about to rip me off, so now I don't trust you. And now if I say no to 50, will you say 25? It just creates, it creates like some friction, versus this thing is $100 and you're going to, you're going to be on your knees praying, thanking God for finding this thing because it's going to be so valuable to you at $100 or $50 or free or whatever it is.
You just mentioned something that just made me think about how people actually react to pricing, because somebody would go and buy a really nice bag or go on a nice excursion, like an extravagant trip, but they wouldn't want to spend that same and invest in themselves. And sometimes people say, oh, just like you mentioned with books, we can have 1,000 books and you can come to my house and be like, oh, you're bookworm, but really this is just decor, so so when somebody thinks about usability, strategy actually being there, because once you buy that course, once you pay for that program, once you opt into that idea, now as a coach, now as a leader, aren't you supposed to also help them through the process, or just let them sit there and figure it out and say, oh yeah, now you made 30 days complete? There should be that balance. So how does someone use that so that they don't feel like they're being tricked?
In terms of like once they get into the course?
Right, like the whole process, because after the sale, there's still evaluation after that. Yeah,
so that comes down to how you lay out your course. Now I have like a kind of like a teacher approach, because my wife is a teacher, and so she's big on like lesson plans and rubrics and all this other teachery kind of stuff. And so when I think in terms of a course, I kind of look at it, and with a lot of her help, through the eyes of, she's teaching 4th grade kids who want nothing to do with whatever it is that she's teaching, but they have no choice. And so you kind of have to, like, all right, well, how do we make this interesting? How do we make it so somebody wants to go through this process? So that means like setting this thing up, and not as me doing a brain dump of, hey, here's everything I know, now digest it and, cross your fingers and hopefully you learn something. But really taking it from the perspective of, okay, let's set this up in a way where it's going to be a win, where we're giving small chunks of instruction giving exercises, giving ways for them to share. Like, so not only am I clear about what I'm about to learn, you're giving it to me in bite-sized pieces that I can stomach, and then you're giving me a way to prove that I've learned it. Whether it's some kind of exercise that I could share on Facebook, whether it's kind of like a quiz at the end of my at the end of the lesson, whether it's like something that I could do, and then the next lesson feeds right off of that. So like, hey, now that you learned this, let me show you how to take that and do this with it. And so you take it to that next step, and so it builds on top of each other. And so you're basically kind of holding their hand throughout the process, to to be actively involved in that and say, like, well, I want to make sure that you make it through the 30 days, so let's get on the phone every chance we can, or whatever. Like, that's asking a lot for somebody, for you as a teacher, because it's not scalable, and it's you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to help people, and at the end of the day, you can't want the outcome more than they want the outcome. If you don't think that this is important enough to go through this entire course, it's not my job to call you up every night and say, hey, did you do your homework tonight?
Right.
It's my job is to make it interesting enough to where you are going to learn the lesson if you're willing to get through this course. And my job is to make it, as palatable and as and remove as many of the barriers as I can. But it's not to drag your lifeless body through the end of the course, because you're not going to do anything with it when you get to the end if you're not willing to actually go through it.
Exactly. I like the fact that you mentioned that it has to be a building block. You can't just lead someone to crawl when they've not even realized that they need steps to get to that position where they can be independent and start to walk on their own. So sometimes some people can get into these courses or these programs or these books and read, and they just don't know what to do with them, because now you've given them the blueprint, you've given them the strategy. Now implementing it, like you said, I can't be babying you every time. Hey, have you implemented this strategy? 5.1, you can't be doing that all the time. So I think there's also a level of confidence you have to instill into your audience that gives them that confidence that I too can do this, because it can look so real, it can look so organic, it can look so promising, but when they try it themselves, they're like, I didn't get it. So is there that kind of personal branding approach that is also added as an element of surprise for them to stay connected to the reason of why they actually need this course in the first place?
From a personal brand perspective, yeah. I mean, I think it's a matter of them, you being the type of person that they're aspiring to. So it's not that, like, I want to be this person or whatever, but I want the level of success or the, whatever, thing that however, whatever your messaging is, that you put out, that people, want, and they want access to, and they want to be seen on that same level, and they want to, grow towards where you've gotten to. But doing it in a way where it feels more natural than, like I said, the picture, standing next to the Ferrari. Sometimes it's not about the things at all. For a lot of people, I find that those kinds of, humble brags, are more detrimental. Like, I've known plenty of people that are like, I can't stand that guy always taking pictures, of his inside of his garage. Like it doesn't do anything for a lot of people.
Right.
In fact, it turns them off. So so it's really kind of about that, creating a kind of an end game of, that's the kind of person I want to be like. I want to be like that person. I want to, I want to be seen by my community the way that they, the way that their community sees them. I want to be able to do good with what I've created, just like the way that they do good with what they've created. Like, on that level, that I think that your personal brand can really help people get through a course, or actually see things through. So it's not just this, this thing that they bought and they regret a week later.
Exactly. I believe that too. And I believe with personal branding, everyone has their unique story. So if you're able to tell your story as detailed and as digestible as possible, then somebody that's listening to you can relate, and they can be able to follow through the strategies and models that you create. And even speaking of story, I know we talked about this earlier in the beginning about, you being an author. I want to know exactly, what your goal is this year as an author. What book are you working on? And how can people even get to that? Because people need to read. Like, the internet is so wide that people don't even read anymore. They just swipe. So how do you get that audience for yourself? And, tell me more about your books and, the author journey.
Sure. So my book actually started, now the name of the book is called Be a Dick, How One Person Can Change the World in the Most Unexpected Way. And it's not quite as awful as it sounds in terms of, it's actually kind of a play on words. The book actually started a couple years ago when, in the middle of like a midlife crisis, hitting bottom kind of moment in my life. My family moved from New Jersey to Florida, to Tampa, Florida. And it was there that I met my neighbor Dick, who's this extraordinary guy, late 60s, early 70s, just had this illustrious career, so very successful, great family, incredibly kind, very compassionate, very authentic, just a decent human being, like the kind of person that you just really aspired to. And it was very much like, what we were talking about earlier, in terms of, I found myself every time he's walking his dog around the neighborhood, I found myself grabbing my dog and running outside so I could walk with him, so I could just talk to this guy. He's 20 or 30 years older than me, and here I am, chasing him around like a puppy dog, seeing him as kind of a mentor. And over time, this, coming from this really awful place, he really helped me, mentor me out of it into not only a much better place, but really made me a better human being because of it. So I had been toying around with this idea of writing this book. I wrote a blog post about it. Did some, I told the story on a bunch of stages, for like TED style talks. And everybody really gravitated toward the story, loved the story of this guy, this modern day Mr. Rogers, kind of thing. And so once the pandemic hit, and then all the riots started, and people, everything was so unsettled, I decided that I was like, there's just no better time to write a story about being more kind or more helpful or more compassionate. And so I'm going to write this story. Let's see where it goes. And so I did that, and I released the book in, I think around November, like the early November, and just a lot of people gravitated towards it, fell in love with the story, started sharing it, and so it started to build a little bit of an audience, a little bit of a movement behind this idea of being a dick. Now all of a sudden it meant something totally different. Like if you want to be a dick to somebody, you help them out, or you're more kind than you normally would. People started sharing stories of people that were like my neighbor Dick in their lives, people that they connected to, people that were helpful to them when they needed it, or maybe in some cases it was them. And so a couple weeks ago, now coming from my career in Broadway, I have a lot of musicians who are struggling. They were in a lot of big shows that have been canceled. Broadway's been closed for almost a year now, and so I was like, here I am telling everybody to do good, and I'm watching all my friends suffer and not do anything about it. And so I decided to give all the money from the book away to Broadway to help actors, struggling actors and musicians who are out of work, pay their electric bills, pay their food bills, while they're waiting to get, for Broadway to open back up again, which doesn't look like it'll be till July, June or July. And so that's kind of been the focus of the book. Like the book has, like the purpose behind the book isn't to, to make the first million. Like I'm not looking to be the next J.K. Rowling by writing this book. What it is it's showing my core values, what's important to me, and who I am. It's on display for the world now. And it's not just because I said that I think I should be more kind. It's like, here it is in print. You can read it. It's the purpose of the book is really to strengthen my personal brand and who I am. Because I know that that'll trickle down to my agency. It'll trickle down to people buying books. It'll trickle down to my career as a musician. It'll show up in other areas because you're just one step closer to knowing who I am, who I really am. Not just the facade that people create when they see a picture or see something that you post on social media.
Exactly. And that's a great way to put it, because people need this kind of positive messages. There's so much negativity going on that it's harder to find positive influence people than it is just to scroll and find someone fighting on the street, so it's that balance and making sure that you're able to do good even while there's still bad going on. And if people want to also reach out to you or buy the book, or just reach out and see how they can also be a part of this success story, how can they reach out to you and what can they do from their end?
Sure. So best place to go is probably marcensign.com. It's marcensign.com. And as far as there are links to the book from there, and also the agency, but there's also you can go to loudmouse.com to learn more about what we're doing for people to get their messages out to the world. Or for the book, it's iwanttobeadick.com. So
wow.
if you want to be somebody that makes a difference in your community or changes the world around you, that's the best place to start. Because what I love about that story and everything that being a dick stands for is that we all have the capacity to make a difference right now. It doesn't take an instruction manual to be more kind to someone. It doesn't take, step-by-step process or a 997 course to be more compassionate. We're all built with that, deep down inside. It's just a matter of, just needing a gentle reminder to step up and help somebody else.
Yeah, I think people need to get this book ASAP, because that way they will definitely know what they need, and it will help them, because we're still early in the year. So God willing, as things get better and the world opens up again, you want to be ready for the world, because people are going to take it differently now than before. Right now, social distancing is so let me even put it like this. Some people said, I have some friends that said, even though the social distancing may close in, they're still going to be acting like social distance people. So it's going to be a normal thing to stay away from people, because it's just I've been here by myself for a whole year. So you coming into my space, how is that going to help me? So there's that balance that people, I think, need to know more of.
It's never going to go back to the way things were a year and a half ago or a year ago.
Right.
It's just not. It's going to be. It's not going to be as bad as we can't leave the house. But it's also it's going to be. It's going to be different. You better get used to it. You better find new ways of connecting with people, because running around hugging strangers, those days are gone. Think about it. We're so used to this. What would need to happen in order for everybody to go back to as if this never happened? We all know, we're all terrified of germs now. If it's not COVID, it's another, it's whatever's coming up behind it that we're now concerned about. It's this is here to stay, and so you better find new ways of connecting with people, on an emotional level. Otherwise, you're gonna be left behind.
Yeah, most definitely. I believe so. And now is a perfect time to actually stand out and be your own brand. Be a personal brand. I keep telling people that everybody is a brand. It's how you put yourself out there that people, address you. My mom always tells me that how you dress is how you're going to be addressed. And it's as simple as that, because if you dress the wrong way, you might get the wrong impression, and it's hard to make two impressions at the same time. So you have to make sure that you do it the right way and stay consistent, because somebody's going to count on you for what you say, for what you did, because that way it can bring in that value and trust in the end.
Yeah, look, everybody has a personal brand, whether you know it or not, whether you're working on it or not, whether you're doing anything about it or not. It's just a matter of whether you have any say what other people think about you. So like if you're doing nothing about it, then the rest of us are going to make some assumptions about you. We're going to judge a book by its cover. We're going to base it on, the actions that we see you do. Go like, oh, I guess that's just the kind of person, as opposed to if you're working on your personal brand, you can guide that conversation. Ultimately, people are going to, the personal brand is what people think about you ultimately. And so, whatever you can do to help guide that conversation, the better. Because if you're not doing anything about it, people are judging. They're thinking about you in ways that you probably don't want them to. So you have to control that conversation a little bit.
Exactly. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure people can definitely take home some information and take notes so that they can, be a better person and just learn how to be a better, citizen, a better, civilized person that can actually care about somebody's well-being rather than trying to see where they can take from them.
Be a dick.
Perfect segue. Thank you so much, Mark. This has been an amazing session. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's happy to be here.
Anytime. Yeah, I was just going to say, what last thing would you want to let people know before, we let you go?
The most important thing to me is getting this message of doing right by other people, especially now. And so, when we think of making a difference or changing the world or leaving an impact and all that kind of, fluffy stuff, we tend to think of people that are donating millions of dollars or who are building schools in third world countries and all this other stuff. And the fact is that if you really want to make a difference in your life, in the community, and the world as a whole, it's just these little things. It doesn't take a lot. If you just start by being a little more kind to people, start by being a little more humble, a little more generous, a little more authentic, and you'd be surprised how fast the world changes around you.
Yeah, that's a definite good shot, because that way people can take that in and see people how you see yourself is how somebody sees you. And if you see yourself in a way that is valued, that, hey, I actually have confidence and I was raised in a good home and I can actually be of good service, and people will like you, and you'll be surprised at how people actually want to help you just because of how good you are to them. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. This is really insightful. It's pretty much, I'll call it a food for thought.
Sounds good to me.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thank you so much once again, and I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thanks, you too.
You're welcome.